we're only going to see this now because in years and years to come, that's all going to be gone. So we should all feel truly grateful that this is happening now, because you'll never get to hear those stories again in, say, another 20, 40, 40 years, because there'll be nobody around that has the input and the history, and the relatives may be still alive or grandchildren or whatever. So I just think everybody should give a round of applause for a night like tonight.
Around the 60s, there'd be nearly 3,000 deep sea dockers, close to 2,000 cross-channel dockers. There were thousands of people who worked in timber yards, coal yards, CIE, ESB. It's absolutely unimaginable the amount of people that worked and got a living from the docks. If you look at your own village here now, you'll see huge differences between the 60s and what you have now. You have I think it's a 28-story building. The minute you walk outside the door, you can see it. Ringsend has changed, Dublin has changed. But the whole thing tonight is about a book that was written, and we have with us tonight Aileen O'Carroll, the author of the book, and to kind of introduce the book to you if you haven't already read it. What we propose to do tonight is it's a little interview between herself and myself. I did hope that there'd be more ex-dockers here, where if there was a question asked of me and I might have struggled a little bit, memory wouldn't be that great, I could bring in someone, but I think they're on strike. Again.
Unlock it.
One came in earlier on, John Hawkins, and I think he was at a painting his knuckles to pretend he was working somewhere. So if you just bear with us, if I don't have the answer to the question, we'll roll on. But in general, she said she's going to be nice to me. So can I introduce you now to the author of the book, Aileen O'Carroll.
Talk a little bit about Don Bennett. Don was approached by Mr. Lee McGinn, who is from the Association of Dublin Stevedores, and Don was working in the sociology department in UCD. And Mr. McGinn wanted to see if UCD would be interested in archiving the business records of the Association of Dublin Stevedores, because they were ceasing operation, and also wanted them to see if they could produce a book that would capture the culture and the lives of Dublin dockers before it was too late to get people's first-hand accounts. Don was both the project lead, and there's actually a picture of him up there, you'll see it when it comes around, and later a regular attendant at the Dublin Dock Workers Preservation Society meetings, which he enjoyed enormously up to his death in 2014. One of his emails that he sent to me went, "Topic, thrilling," and then he said, Pretty thrilling to be spending time again talking to old-time dockers last night. Yours, Don." He was a great one for short emails. The core of the book is based on interviews that were conducted by a researcher called Anne Stakelum, with dockers and dockers' wives and stevedores and union representatives in the mid-90s. And that our own research then was supplemented by about 56 interviews drawn from other sources. A lot of more came from Terry Fagan's amazing work in the North Inner City Folklore Project. Some of them, the oral histories conducted by Kevin C. Kearns, and then some other interviews done by some students from UCD and another project based in Trinity, as well as interviews from the National Folklore Archive. So we're looking everywhere, trying to get the words of the people themselves who experience dock work. Our starting point for the interviews were interviews with Willie Murphy and Martin Midden, both Ringsend dockers, and they introduced us to other dockers and their wives. Most of the interviews took place in dockers' pubs, some of the interviewees' home, and one is a part of a walk along the South Quays showing parts of the city that are no longer there anymore. The oldest person we interviewed started working in the docks in 1922, and he was the son of a docker, so he could talk about his father's experience and his memories growing up. Most of the people we interviewed were deep sea dockers. I want to finish just with a few words about Don and some of the emails he sent to me about dockers. People often ask us why we were interested in looking at dock workers. And I think for Don, some of it was to do with his own personal experience. He was an American and he came to Ireland, I think, in the 70s. But he emailed me once saying, I myself worked as a casual day labourer in the States, where we stood or sat in areas for the purpose, early mornings, and employers wanting a day's work. Sometimes more than a day, but it could be just a day. They came in and selected. They pointed at those they wanted, general labour, which is the Irish category for this. I was a freight handler and a member of the Teamsters Union for 5 to 6 years. It has occurred to me that it is relevant to the qualification to speak of labour, so I've added this to my CV. Labouring, trade unionised freight handler for 5 years. Good idea, isn't it? Is it worded okay? I mean, is it a good idea to add this? It was not a good idea to be in the Teamsters Union. I think also both of us really love the dockers and their sense of humour and their wonderful use of language and the turn of the phrase in our interviews, and the way they would just express things were so eloquent and so smart and so witty. I think somebody said to me earlier in the week, the dockers may not have been educated, but they were very intelligent men. We love the nicknames, names like Jelly Beans, Biscuit Earrings, Hearse Man, Fuck It, It Will Do, I like that one. Pint in a Pillow, don't know what that means. Yeah. So every name was a story, and I think Don was drawn to these stories and the way they were told, because Don himself was a very beautiful writer, and I was lucky to have worked with him so early in my career, as I certainly learned a lot of how to craft a beautiful sentence to him. So just to give you a flavour of book, I'm going to read you just a very short section that Don wrote, and in the section, he's just summarising and describing what the docks were like. In whichever location the docks were a riot of activity. There were all sorts of work to be done on the docks and all sorts of people to do it. The port had regular workers, warehouse men, railway men, customs officers, crane men, importers, personnel, timber yard men, stevedores. Importers and buyers at some periods of history bargained on the docks. Many of the port's people worked closely with the dockers, while others were occupied very differently. And there were irregulars around the quays, from occasional yard workers and spellers to the hoggers, the boilers and the woodeners, the men who were on the docks literally to suck slop alcohol. Hoggers poured slop Guinness and anything else remotely alcoholic into barrel lids and openly swilled all day long, chalking their faces in the process with the red and blue barrel markings. Woodeners or boilers worked especially on whiskey barrels into which they poured scalding water. Then they rolled the barrel around, allowing the heat to draw alcohol from the wood. This was the docks. Bikes stacked against the walls waiting for their owners. Horse-drawn wagons, steam wagons and lorries replacing each other in their time. Gas company narrow gauge railway cars resting on sidings running close along the docks, surrounded by a motley assortment of waiting Dublin carters, female street traders from Thomas Street or Parnell Street stall markets who have learnt that bananas have arrived. Cold hawkers using their own horse-drawn wagons would cart away, jangling bridle and creaking car bed from a ton to a ton and a half. It was a pandemonium of din and continued movement as behind all this ships clanked along the quayside. So if you want to read more about the book. So I'm going to, what I thought is I'd ask some questions that maybe we didn't get to answer completely in the book, and learn a little bit about the experience from a real life docker. So the first was, do you know what the meanie mo is? We assumed that somebody mentioned it in an interview, and we thought it probably meant the reed, eeny, meeny, miny, mo. No? Oh, get around.
We're down to the one mic, by the way, sorry. And the meanie mo was the amount of tonnage you would have to get, which was 96 ton. If you remember, most of them, when they were in bags, everything they worked was beneath their feet. So stooping, bending all the time. It was pretty hard to get 96 tons. So the 96 ton was the least you got before you could earn something like a dunnage hour. But that needs explaining, because between different cargoes, there was layers of dunnage which would be old planks of wood to separate the different cargoes. They had to be cleaned up, and a dock will never do anything for nothing. So when the company says, you have to take the timber up before you get the other cargo, I said, yeah, you're going to pay me. You will only get paid a dunnage hour if you have beaten the 96 ton. So that was the mimi, and it was someone's way of explaining the minimum, I think. But it was just mimi to everyone.
And what were your favourite? We were told that dockers would try and pick reads that were calling for work that they particularly like to do. They'd go for their favourite work. What was your favourite work?
I kind of, that's an unfair question, because I came into my own later on when forklift trucks and stuff like that came onto the docks. But I tried as much as I could. I was only a little skinny article when I started at first at 16. And to work, for someone like me to work with a guy who's doing bags for 20 years, a lot of you here, I'm looking at the Duns here, and their father was a good bit older than me. And you might look at, say, the two of us walking down the street, you'd say, that's a young fella, that's an outfella. Well, when you got into a bag boat, the outflow was the fella who knew everything. He's the guy that would put manners on me. He was the guy that had to teach me how to lift bags, because what most people don't even know about bags, if you have, say, a bag that's where your chocolate comes from, bags of chocolate, cocoa beans. If I lift the bag before you, I'm lifting 3 stone, you're lifting 9. So you had to be as quick as the guy before you know. That's impossible for me with Skipper Dunn, because he's been down there 20 years before me. So you have to learn very, very quick. They were patient men, but they wouldn't wait. They wouldn't wait all day for you. They would teach you a lesson so that you would learn that lesson. I'm getting away from the question really, but I think you understand where I'm coming from. Am I allowed to swear here? Yeah. They were shit stirrers. If they could teach you a lesson, they would teach it to you in a very kind way, but it was shit stirred, and they would get their fun out of that.
So what was your favourite thing to work though?
I suppose when the bundled timber came in, I didn't like, again, you would avoid the loose timber because you had to be an expert. Again, you're picking up timber from beneath your feet. You had to know how to shorten a strap. So until such time as you knew how to shorten ropes and straps and wires and stuff like that, you avoided that kind of work.
So what do you mean by shortening a rope?
Well, if you're heaving stuff out of a wing, and when the hook comes in, it's very easy for a hook to get caught under the eaves. You could pull a bloody crane into the hatch, or a winch. You pull a winch down. So, so that it wouldn't, you have to shorten the rope, and it lifts before it comes out of the wing.
And how did you learn all that? You started why did you when you started?
16.
So how did you learn all the things to do?
You learn very quickly with these people. These men were experts. I could talk about a thing called a box of bacon, right? That's a word they used for in the Finnish boats when you had paper, and there was always these square crates that were put together with. You can picture the computer paper, the what do you call them, the 3s and 4s, A4, yeah. Picture packets of that in a square box, right? It's about 400 weight, 500 weight. And these guys could manipulate that into a rope just by using what they call a box of bacon. They don't actually lift it. but they were experts at balancing the weight and getting it from point A to point B, and then canting it, and it's just dead square. Then you get another, then the other guy gets another one, and you get a third one, and then you bring it over again, and the two get together and lift them. So they minimised the amount of lifting, they maximised the amount of tonnage going into a rope. In fact, you had to tell them to stop at times, because those ropes would only take 1 ton, and they were trying to get beat the Mimi, get the 96 ton, so they were putting 1.5 tons in them, and it was quite dangerous. It would not be allowed in this day and age. Oh, sorry, I still didn't answer your question.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think I was sort of carried with the flow, if you like, until such time as you're known for what you can do. Most of those were experts at bags. The characters were they were sort of the cement gang. You had others. Falgraves did a little of everything, cards and so on. Then you had the people who dug coal. They were all experts at their field, and you wouldn't get a job in those areas. So you were left with a small amount of choice, and at the beginning you literally took what you could get. It's only after several years when you would make yourself known to be in a second gang or a first gang in any of the companies that you could stand in and hope to get a job. But you didn't have I certainly didn't have the knowledge or ability or wherewithal to pick my work. I just went in every day, hoped to get a job, and if I didn't, home early.
And when you were a button man, is that right? You got a button from your father?
Yeah, better known as a hand-me-downer. I got my father's button. The hand-me-downer was a lesser button man than the original button man. The buttons came out in 1947, and my father took sick. He died at 38, so that'll give you an idea what the place was like. And I was an only boy, so I took the button, and I started out in 1963 at 16 and a half.
Can you remember your first day?
We do, yeah. You're not looking for a laugh. My very first day, I was pushed into a raid by my uncle, and Willie Downey was picking out for, it was a Southside foreman, he was picking out for a bag boat for Paul and Vincent's. Horrible stuff to work. But when the raid took place and I got a job in Anymore Button, as they say, I was told what to wait for. Before they employed the non-button force, they had to make sure that all buttonmen were employed. So they called Anymore Buttonmen, and you walk out, you give your cards. The next thing you do is you get your gear and you go to the ship. But I didn't know where the ship was. And I just looked, and everyone seems to be going to the ferry. My first day, I thought, these are going home. So I decided to follow one guy and got into the ferry after him. And he turned around, he noticed me, but he only noticed me when he was in the flats. He was going home for his bag hook. And I'm in the middle of the flats looking for a ship. And I think, Jesus, what are they doing here? I just didn't grasp it at all. But anyway, he took me by the hand, brought me back to, showed me where the ship, that's the ship there, that big thing in the water. And proceeded not only to look after me getting to the ship, but he was in the same gang and he worked with me, which I thought was better than even telling me where the ship was, because nobody wants to work with a day tripper. He could have worked with any of them. That guy actually was Louis Reynolds. I'm sure a lot of you know him. He was very, very kind to me on my first day, but he said, I hope I never see you again. So, but you avoided, to get back to your other question, you avoided that type of work if you could. But you'd have to know what it is. There were people who knew what was in every ship, what type of cargoes, what type of money you could make.
So how do they know what was it going to be in a ship?
I still don't understand it. I worked with a guy, and this guy drank in this pub with Valley Fulham and with John Gaskins, Mickey Bourne. His nickname was Telefish, and his nickname was Telefish because he knew the news before RTE knew it. He knew what ships were coming up, what tonnage was in them. He knew which church the first gang was going to, and no one to this day could tell you how he knew. He was amazing. And he wasn't alone in that, by the way. There was a lot of them out of each different areas. People who probably the night before would have been told by Willie Downey or Jack Guyton what he has the next day, you know.
So if you were local or you had family who were in docking, you definitely had an advantage because you know what ships were coming in.
Oh yeah, I'm sure there were days when you would have to be a relation, or you wouldn't. There's no point in applying. The gangs were different sizes, so if a foreman had 40 relations and he only had one ship with 20 men going to it, it's 20 out shipped.
Yeah. And was there any way you could influence your chances of getting picked in the read?
Yeah,
stand over the front. What were the tricks?
Well, the foreman's responsibility would be to make sure that he got the maximum amount of cargo out of the ship. If he looks down into the hatch and he sees 4 men walking and 2 acting the maggot, he won't employ them again. So that's the only way. You had to do. You had to cover yourself in glory walking. You had to be really sharp on it.
So you had to have a good reputation.
Oh yeah.
And how did you feel about the foremen and the stevedores? Were they all the same, or were there some better than others?
Well, I never went through the period where the foremen were paid by dockers with a little matchbox or bought drink for. When I went down in 1963, it was sort of semi-civilised. I'm sure we did have one gang that were called the Aquanauts, and that was because they worked continuously in the rain and without any rain gear. But that was going out. There was a lot of union activity that cut it out. There was I suppose the employers weren't as unscrupulous as they had been before, and things were starting to get very tidy, and a decent working relationship was sort of beginning. And I'd have to say it slowly got better from the time I couldn't remember a year that went by without it improving in some fashion.
And would you have socialised together, or did you keep separate?
At the time I lived in Sheriff Street, and I would socialise insofar as I didn't drink, so I wouldn't have gone for a pint with them, but I would certainly meet them later on. And I think at the time, around the 60s in particular, there was a lot of people, this sort of divide between North and South. You would always go to a place like, say, the Kingsway or something like that, and you'd see to be a bit of crack with the in the pub beforehand, or in the dance hall there, with the Ringsenders or the Pierce Street crowd and the North Side ribbing each other. But I've seen it referred to as open, in a good word, but it wasn't really. It was off crack. It was off, yeah.
And you talked there about raining. Did you have to provide your own boots and books, and or were they provided for you? Rain gear, any of that?
I'm going to tell you a little story, but when you said boots, I told this story several times. In my first 6 months, I was working at a ship for Palgrave Murphy's, and I literally got into the hatch with a pair of boots that my father had sort of stepped out of. He was sick. And one of the guys, the most prominent docker in the hatch, came out to me and said, Jesus, you're a disgrace. And I said, I didn't know what he was talking about. He says, look at the boots, where'd you get them boots? So I didn't know what was going on, being innocent. And he said, get over there to the store and get yourself a pair of boots. And I walked over, they're creating this little magical hole in the cargo. I walked in, his brother's in there in the hole, and he's saying, get the boots off you. I took the boots off and put them down the stringers. He puts this brand new pair, he gives me this brand new pair of boots, and I put them on, and I went out into the middle of the hatch with black shiny boots and orange laces. And up on the deck there's a sailor, they call him a watchman, and he sees this idiot with a pair of these boots, and he goes against the chief officer. No sooner he's got the chief officer, the captain is down, and then we heard word that they're after sending for the harbour police. So someone said to me, you better get yourself out of town. And I'm fretting and said, Jesus, my mother's going to kill me. I'm only a wet day on these docks and I'm going to be sacked. And when they went to get up the hatch and they had it locked, and I got back down and said, geez, I can't get out. So they said, calm down, calm. No one seemed to be worried, only me. Anyway, eventually the harbour police came down with the captain, and they're out. We could hear them out in the hatch. The next thing, a tray come in. There's a pair of shoes on the tray. So I took the boots off, put the shoes on, but I wear size 9, and these shoes were size 13. So, this is why these guys weren't worried. They had the saver for me. And anyway, the skipper put his hand down the back of the shoes, wanted to know where they got them now. But there's nothing they could prove. I have to say, before I finish off with this, that was the first and only time I ever tried to take anything other than an apple. We're back again. You're a very disbelieving crowd. It is a lesson to be learned. Anyway, I got away with it. But when all the hullabaloo was finished, and officers are all gone, the guy that had told me to change the boots said to me, he came over and he says to me, you know, you're a disgrace. So he already told me that once. He said, no, we didn't know what you were doing. He said, we'd have never worked with you. And that got me into trouble, and then he was accusing me of being the one that started it. So does that answer? Yeah. I know I have it for rambling.
Oh, sorry. Oh yeah, so what did you do if you didn't get picked? What time did you went to the 8 o'clock read?
Yeah.
And then what would you do if you didn't get picked in that one?
8 o'clock read, and there was some half-day read for shed work and stuff like that. Then there was a 10 o'clock read. So you waited around for them. And if you had information that there was a read for a late ship or an early start the next morning, that would be 11 o'clock. So you hung around till then, and when you knew there was nothing else, you headed off.
Okay. And somebody else want to ask a question? Don't want to be dominating.
Sorry, we have, we've only just realised, we have one of the old stevedore company's employees there, very, very respected man there, Barclay Vincent. Could you come up to us and maybe have a little say in what was going on all those years ago? Man, let's give him a bit of encouragement. Maybe you'll open up by telling us what we were like.
Thank you. Well, got me on the spot.
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Basically, I came here tonight because I really admire the fact that this record, very fine record, has been written and very carefully written, and I've read it very carefully too. And I won't make any comment about where there might be something I'd say differently. But anyway, no, I'm extremely proud to be here to thank the author and Don's contribution for writing such a very fine, good story. Not only the lives, but the stories of the men. And I'll keep that book for my family to read and understand, I hope. But I daren't say a word in here.
Can I ask you, did you enjoy the work that you did?
Yes, at times I did. There was times when it was very, very, very hard.
What was the good times? What did you like about it?
Well, I enjoyed the crack from the men. I enjoyed the gangs working and seeing them coming. Some of them got seen while they were working, and some. But there were times when things went very hard and sour. And it wasn't always the men's fault. It was just life here on the port.
Yeah, one thing I got from reading the book is that you had a much more of a sense of Dublin as a port and Ireland as an island, because things were coming in and out and people were working, you could see when it was coming in and out.
Yes, that's true. It's very,
so much more life attached to it.
Yes, there was, yeah, that's true. And I like to think we've made a big contribution to Ireland's success as a country development. But
Okay, thanks very much. Yeah, thank you. I've just got one last question. Is I started asking you what was the work you like doing the best.
thank you, thank you.
What work did you hate doing that you try and avoid if you could?
Well, you avoided stuff like asbestos. Asbestos was very dangerous stuff, and
did you know at the time it was dangerous?
well, we had a massive canoe in the hatch, because all the stuff that was going to Liverpool would be palletised and shrink wrapped and protected from the environment and from handling, whereas ours was loose. So whether they were paying by half the price for loose tonnage and handling, I'm not too sure how that happened, but we felt when we got to know that it was dangerous, we felt that we were let down by people who didn't protect us, because there's an awful lot of my father died at 38 years of age. I'm sitting beside a woman here whose husband died at 44 years of age. There was a huge amount of them died like that, and we always felt that there could have been an awful lot more done. Now, there wasn't only asbestos, but there was stuff like fish meal. If you walk a fish meal boat, you literally stank of fish for a week. You go upstairs in a bus and everyone runs downstairs. So you had to go home on a bike or something like that. You know, you wouldn't get into a car. It made it better. Stuff like carbon black. I don't even know what it's used for. But there was even feedstuffs, some feedstuffs that were very dusty, and so if you could, you would avoid them. But you would go to them rather than spend a week without work. Some people, depending on who the guy was, if he had 4 or 5 kids, he wasn't going to refuse work to take anything. But then there was the choosy fellas, and there was single fellas, so they only wanted their money to go dancing and drinking and what have you. But so everyone was different. My personal choices would have been to avoid all of those cargoes.
Yeah. And just before we finish up, can you tell me some of the nicknames?
You mentioned Point Nutella, that was Mick Bourne. We had three Mick Bournes. There was a Telefish was one of Telefish Ireland. Point of Tele was another one. And then there's the other Mick Bourne, who was, because the others had real nicknames, he was called Big Weakness. There used to be in this pub a plaque over there by Lyrics Murphy with all nicknames of Ringsend people. And I don't know where it went. We did ask when this pub was coming up for sale. We did ask if it could be preserved and handed to us. And Willie Murphy, Lord of Mercy, told us he would get it and hand it to him. But you've never seen anything like this. Lyrics Murphy was a guy who had probably the best handwriting skills I've ever seen in my life, and he had all these nicknames. I'm sure the people in the pub who've been here years would agree with me. It was a work of art. We would love to have it in our archives. So if there's anybody here who nicked it before the pub was sold, will you hand it over for us? Or even if you know where it is, we'll come and get it.
I'm looking for it. Probably up in Johnny Fontaine.
Okay, I think we'll. Do you want to say something about the society?
Yeah, so we're talking earlier about the shit starting and the urge that you had to get 96 ton. If you got through the 96 ton, you got a living wage. If you didn't get through the 96 ton, it's a whole different ball game. So we set up this society 7 years ago, and down through the years, people have donated photographs to us. Billy McDermott is here tonight. She donated a photograph of the house gang. Now, I didn't give her any money for it, but I'd have paid a fortune for that photograph because there's so many stories attached to the particular man in the photograph. But what's equally as good is the stories, especially the ones that we can verify are true. So there was checkers on the quayside, and there could be 4 or 5 gangs on a ship. And the checker was put under extreme pressure. So a gang hit 90 ton, or 94 ton, or 95 ton, and they didn't hit the magic 96. Well, that meant that all the men were in a much poorer position. So the majority of checkers were open to persuasion. Semi-threatening, semi-few points. You had a tally sheet, and it was amazing how many tally sheets came in with 97 ton on them. But there was one checker who would religiously not change his mind. If the gang got 95 ton, that was it, he wasn't going to change it. No matter what amount of slagging, abuse, threats, the man would not change his socket. So the gang, a bit like what Miley was saying about Telefish, the gang found out that there was a ship coming up and it had 2 elephants aboard it for Dublin Zoo. So all the gangs on the ship were in on this. All the crane men were in on this. Everybody in the port was in on it, bar the port checker. So he was distracted by a group of men when the first elephant came off. It was taken off in ropes, and absolutely perfect. They skied the elephant around the corner. Probably 20 minutes before the ship was due to start, he came out to his work at 8 o'clock, and they then discharged the other elephant and all the other cargo. And that particular day, the gang didn't hit the 97 ton, and the gang went up into the stevedore's office and said, "We're always been done by this particular checker. The poor chap, he's a gobshite, he never gets his figures right." And the stevedore said, no, he's never been wrong in his life. And they says to him, "But he's a gobshite. There was 2 elephants and he missed the fucking elephants." But the funny thing was, it didn't change him. He still put out 95 ton the next day.
Very good.
Basically, our part of it is finished. Is there anybody in the audience that just wants to ask a question? If we can, we will answer it. I don't want to scan first about that.
Because I feel very grateful that we're only going to see this now, because in years and years to come, that's all going to be gone. So we should all feel truly grateful that this is happening now, because you'll never get to hear those stories again in, say, another 20, 30, 40 years, because there'll be nobody around that has the input and the history, and the relatives may be still alive, or grandchildren or whatever. So I just think everybody should give a round of applause for a night like tonight.
So it's a terrible what we're talking. RTE Radio got a group of us into a room and decided to make a documentary about the doctors. They wanted to know about them.
Trying to get the boots.
So for sale behind the counter.
Don't pay any more than 20.
Cut price.
What do you want?
So RTE brought a group of us into a room and they wanted to talk about the wobbling and the stroking. So I had a secret meeting with everybody beforehand to say to everybody, don't mention any names, don't talk about any of the big strokes, talk about the small things we did. And we had a great laugh that night because one of the lads was talking that when tights came out, no woman in East Wall or Ringsend were allowed to buy tights. Because Knockers used to buy tights because it's the perfect way to get loose tea out of the pole. You filled the tea into the tights, you put it over your shoulders and you put your jacket on it. And there was even for that kind of wobbling, there was a name for it, a very fancy name. It was called bunkering. And there was a dressmaker, woman that launched clothes in East Wall. She became famous for being able to put in hidden pockets into the inside of your jacket. She was the lady best known for bunkering. So we spent an hour, and the producer, the director of RTE, was actually thrilled with the programme. And it was meant to go out the following Wednesday, it didn't. It go out the next Wednesday, and I rang up and said, what happened to the story about the strokes? And she says, the legal department in RTE says you can't go out. So, if you want to know about the strokes, ask Miley.
Told by one of the homies. I'm looking here at Skipper Dunn's daughters, and just one thing I have to say before we finish up is that during all the time that we worked on the docks, I know it's changed now, and I'm not suggesting for a minute that it's any different because of these people. But in all our years, there was never a lady docker down there. Now there are, so you have something to celebrate. And I believe they're doing very, very well. Barkley, you didn't think it was ever going to be one. We couldn't afford them.
I think you got a question over there.
We finished that?
There's somebody over there.
Oh, sorry.
Good evening. First of all, this is like to congratulate you for speaking on amazing. The history, the banter, the names, to the order, to the writers, everything. I just wanted to ask you a question. Did you ever know the Rattley family in Ringsend?
Yep.
I think you're asking the wrong person. We got a yes down there. Not me, no.
Yeah.
Okay.
Lived next door to me. I was born in 1/8 piece in House Road. And the Rattley family lived next door to me. You know where the fountain is?
You were both
Business
men.
Road. And they were both.
That's right.
Yeah.
You weren't mentioned here
There were
tonight.
3 brothers, yeah.
The both men weren't mentioned here tonight.
Well, they were both men years ago. They were old men when I was growing up. And
That's right, we're all salmon fishermen.
Yeah.
The reason I'm actually bringing this up this evening is because my mother is a Rattley. That's my sister there, and I'm my brother. And obviously,
Who walked down here?
Basically, unfortunately, my mother's brother died 2 weeks ago, and he was buried 3 days ago, and there is no more Ratleys anymore. So the whole history of the Ratley family of Ringsend is gone. And I was just wondering, did you ever kind of work with them? They went deep sea. They were on Irish shipping, they were on the Cedar, the Pine, the Ellen. And I just maybe thought that you, at some stage, you might have come across. But obviously,
Well, look, this is what we're trying to do. The fact that someone else other than me answered your question, you've got it answered. Do you know what I mean? I would like anyone, if I'm not getting there with the question, to stand up like that man did and tell us.
yeah, we've lots of stuff at home that we could
Well,
probably.
you know where to go with it now. I'll give you a card and we're going to
Definitely, yeah. I'll send you some stuff and pictures and
And sorry, there's one other thing I'd like to say. I do know we're an association that's not going away. We're a few years doing this, and we're getting better at it as we go along. And it's not just our history. It's not my history. It's your history. We're not going to let the history die. And I'm sure you have precious photographs and memorabilia. But what we do is, if we get a photograph that is precious to you, we copy it and we give you back your photograph. We will digitize it and so on, and it's saved forever. So, back to you. So, don't be afraid of coming forward to us with something that your dad might have left in the house, and if you give it to us, you're never going to see it again. That's not true. We've given up the robin. So I'm sure if someone told me tonight actually that Gura has about 50 photographs. He must be sitting on them. You know that, he's not here, he's alive to us. But if you have any photographs, let us know. I mean, copy them and get them back.
So the history of Ringsend is unbelievable. I go along and I give the odd talk, and I get embarrassed because somebody in the audience can trace themselves back 6 generations. There was dockers from Ringsend, Pierce Street, City Quay, who could trace their families back to the original hobblers. So a sail ship came into the bay, they saw the sails, they rowed out in unseaworthy wooden boats, and whoever put the hook into the ship got the job of doing it.
Ratley's done it.
That's it. And what's even, we started to uncover some of the history of Ringsend, and then I started getting threatening phone calls because there's an unwritten piece about a community in Torbay in England. That's it. So we're all under British rule at the time, so they felt that the British Navy needed a new area to dock their ships. At Torbay, the people of Torbay had fishing experience, they boat building experience, they had berthing rights, fishing rights, and land in Torbay. And the British government said to them, we can do this the nice way or the hard way. The nice way was to pay each and every family 6 times the value of all their holdings if they moved out. And the hard way was just to compulsory purchase them and put them on their way. But the hard one came was when they said to them, every single family has to agree. So somebody did a bit of research on it, and they found that they were a Protestant community, and they found out that the Protestant pastor, they can't establish whether he was born in Dublin, but he was educated in Trinity College. And he was totally aware that at that particular time, Ringsend was on the river, but there was no housing. So the deal they did was X amount of money, but you build houses for us in Ringsend and Dublin. You build a Protestant church. You build a community centre for us, which is where the cafe is now. And we'll move over lock, stock and barrel. So the amount of fishing licences on the river shot up. They're saying this took part 1850 to 1870. Boat building tradition in Ringsend, which only finished in 1950, except for the exception of Willie Murphy's family who came from Wexford. You can trace back the boat building to the people from Tower Bay. The whole traditions of docking, and if the work wasn't there, going to sea, that's all intermingled. But when we try to establish these facts, a lot of, besides the threats I got from people in the Ringsend, we weren't able to access the records. So the Ringsend is a unique place. I happened to work here for 17 years and had to show my passport every single day because it was an outsider. But I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's a terrible pity that the history of Ringsend in itself isn't written up and preserved. And we try and do it, but every now and again, especially at election time, we get promises. And then every time we go and try and research something, somebody puts a blocker on it. But there's no doubt. There's a great commemoration this year, which was the commemoration for the people from Ringsend and City Key who were aboard the SS Hare and the SS Adela, who were sunk by German U-boats in 1917. And the same thing was all hushed up because under British rule at the time, these people were on British ships. But they were from Ringsend, they were from Pearse Street. They deserve to have their memories honoured and the history told. So I get off myself on that. I reckon the doctors do as well.
Just want to let you know that anybody wishing to buy a copy of the book, they're on sale behind the bar.